Hi, my name is Rachel from StraitJacket Podcast.
I'm Jeff from Mental Health Resource.
And I'm Jenna. I'm a counselor at Trust SoCal, and I try to specialize in women and addicts with self-esteem issues and having self-compassion.
Perfect.
So I guess let's start off. What brought you into the mental health arena?
So, I believe that I struggled with mental health from an early age. However, I grew up in a family where going to a therapist, going to a doctor, it was like frowned upon. And my mom finally did take me to a doctor, and they diagnosed me with a few things. And however, whenever we walked out, it was just kind of like dismissed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I dealt with my mental health for a really long time without really even thinking that I had mental health. If you would have asked me a few years ago if I was doing an intake like into a treatment facility,
Yeah.
and you would have asked me if I had mental health issues or depression or anything like that, I would have told you no.
Mm-hmm.
I was very ashamed of it. I believe it was a lot more stigmatized back in the day, and I'm more comfortable with it now. But it's become a lot more destigmatized. However, I believe whenever it comes to substance abuse and mental health, I believe for me and for a lot of others that the mental health started first, and a way to kind of quiet those voices would, for me anyways, was to take drugs.
Yeah.
I had anxiety and CPTSD, ADD whenever I was younger. However, I did not take anything for it.
What is CPTSD?
Like child PTSD.
Oh, okay.
But like I said, I went to that appointment and then we walked out. We never did, anything else about it.
Mm-hmm.
No follow-up. They prescribed medications. My mom completely turned that down.
And where is it that you're from?
Well, I grew up in Texas and South Georgia, St. Simon's Island.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That was pretty probably culturally the norm there.
Mm-hmm.
still very much is.
Yeah.
The difference between the acceptance in California and kind of more along here, and then going back down to the South, how I did recently, it's still very, very stigmatized and looked down on. It is how I feel with the people there.
So she didn't even put you in like therapy or anything after that?
No.
Okay.
No. I did do therapy one time as whenever I was 14, some things happened. My father that raised me since I was 2 didn't even know he was not my father until I was like 8, and I walked in one day and was like, "Hey, why is my last name different?" And they were like, "Oh, 'cause that's not your real dad, I believe at that point I started feeling different. And
Well, yeah, let's start off with your story, I guess, from the beginning of
Yeah.
what started affecting you with mental health.
okay.
I guess probably a good first question would be to start it. When is the first time that you felt like you might have been struggling with mental health?
So, I don't remember what age I was in, but I remember in middle school, I didn't know anything about depression or anxiety back then, but I did try to, take my own life in middle school by swallowing a bunch of pills. I've not really shared that with people. So I guess that would maybe be the first time that I noticed it, but I was really naive.
Was it like an impulsive thing, or had you thought it through?
It had been something that I've been thinking on for a while. growing up, like, it was weird. I never thought I would make it to like 13. Then I just never thought that I would live long. I just had like these crazy thoughts in my head that never stopped. So, yeah, I did that in middle school. I would say though, from working with my therapist, that the first time that like I started to feel like I was different from other people would have been whenever I walked into that room and I asked, you know, why my last name was different. From that point forward, like I felt different than my brother and sister I always had. I looked different. I felt like I was treated different. And, but that just that's where I started to feel like there was something wrong with me and like I didn't belong.
What age was that? Just
probably 9.
okay. So then before the pills. Okay.
Yeah. So that was probably about 3 years before the pills. I started like experimenting with stuff really young. I got caught in 4th grade with alcohol at school, got suspended. I had really terrible anxiety all my life. So at 14, my friend's mom gave me one of her anxiety pills. And I felt like that's what I had been missing for like my life. And she also started me on the opiates. And it just kind of took off from there. Anything that I could do to not have to deal with what was going on inside of my head. And that's something that it's very hard to like work through because it never quiets down. And through doing different things, staying sober and working with a therapist, and then also getting to know myself, because since I was younger, like I've always had somebody to tell me what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
And then I got into relationships that would last long times where they basically had all control. So I had no idea who I was, what I wanted, what I enjoyed. And so I tried to get sober my first time 14 years ago. So I was 24. I had never heard of rehab before that. I had been 5150'd a few times before that. But I still did not take it seriously. I still really, I knew that there was something wrong with me, but I thought it might be the drugs at that point because I was pretty deep in. So I went into treatment at 24, and I ended up getting 8.5 months clean. However, I did 0 work on the inside. So all of those things that I was still struggling with before I got sober, they were all there. Like, you know, I probably had a good first month and I was like on cloud 9. And then there comes, you know, the depression, the anxiety, the not being able to pay attention. Just, it does, I believe it makes it a little bit more difficult whenever you're trying to get sober. However, it is possible, because if I'm sitting here today, then it's possible. But it's taken me a long time to get here. At 24, when I first went to treatment, if you asked me, do you have trauma? Was anything ever done to you, or whatever, you know, the questions that you asked, I would have said no. I would have said I did not think that any of those things bothered me. I was always taught to just like pick yourself back up and keep going. What I've learned is that even if you're like a professional stuffer like I was, it stays with you and it's going to come back until you process it and deal with it. And processing and dealing with things in sobriety is completely different than something happening whenever I'm using. when I'm using, I had about 14 and a half months sober, and my 18-month-old niece drowned. Wow. This is back in 2019. And I immediately relapsed. I don't think I cried over that for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. I was able to get myself through it, per se.
Yeah. But not deal with it.
Yeah, not deal with it. And so that's one thing I'm really big about is like, when I'm talking to people and I see the reluctance like I had, just letting them know that, like, just because I thought that having trauma made you weak, or I just did not want to come off weak. The places where I was in my addiction, I would have been swallowed up if I would have came off weak. So whenever I see that reluctance in others, I do try to let them know, like, that's, at least for me, it was a normal feeling to feel like it doesn't bother me. I don't need to talk about it. Why bring this up? It's not a big deal, and just completely shut it down. I would say, though, my first time really processing something in the correct way in this past 18 months of sobriety would be I had a roommate that passed away in my house. It was very traumatic for the people who were there, and like we were trying to give CPR and Narcan and everything, and I just knew the guy was coming back from the hospital, and when he didn't, it took me a minute. Like, everyone else was crying, I was more in shock, I believe.
Yeah.
I also think it threw me back to some times in my past where those things have happened before, but they had always made it, and I was always using, so it didn't bother me as much, I don't believe. But having to process through that and not
and you still were trying to come to work during that, which I was like, oh my goodness.
You guys actually sent me home the first day. Because I don't know what to do as a normal person, Out of my 38 years of living, I've had a few periods of sobriety, but I've used for probably a solid at least like 20 years, 20, maybe 19. So,
so how did you deal with that?
I talked about it to everyone that would listen. I talked to my therapist, but I had a lot of support from everyone at work. But I talked to everyone. I talked so much about it until when it came up, I was like, I don't want to talk about it because I don't need to talk about it. So it was a lot of just like being open and vulnerable about how I'm really feeling. I used to be scared that if I said to someone, hey, I feel like shit, I want to relapse, that it would ultimately make it come true. So I would always keep that like to myself. However, I've learned that if you open up and you share it, it actually gives people a chance to maybe say something to you that might change your mind. So talking for me was crucial. And then also physical activity. Physical activity for me has been an important part of my recovery.
Exercise.
Exercise, anything though, like it can be throwing a football out on the beach, anything. Like I said, I did not know who I was I'll be honest, I'm still finding out who I am, but I don't think I even started to really get to know myself until about 2 years ago. And I made it like a priority because I wanted to get to know myself so that I could be my authentic self, and then hopefully get to a point to where I was comfortable being my authentic self, and I was comfortable if that was not okay with someone else, or like if they did not like it. So, and I do urge that with my clients, and I try to sit there with them. And what I did was I went back and I thought about the things that made me happy or brought me peace before drugs and alcohol ever entered my life. Because after the drugs and alcohol and everything entered, that was the only thing that brought me any peace. That was the only thing that brought me any kind of comfort. I didn't think that I would ever be able to live without drugs. So finding what makes you happy. It's not going to be what makes everyone else happy either, you know?
That's very true. And you don't have to answer all of this, but something that I think is a difficult topic, but also very necessary. What helped you with dealing with your suicidal thoughts?
So my help is a little extreme. I kind of dealt with my depression. I don't even know if I know I was depressed during my using, 18, 19, around that, but I just didn't know what it was. But when I was 24, so this is after I had gotten 8.5 months and my life was like really great, and I took that for granted and I relapsed. And I was I almost lost custody. I almost lost custody of my daughter, and I was going through that. And I was in the bathtub. I was alone. I was with my daughter's father at the time, but I was alone taking a bath, and I had a razor. And anyways, he came in, like, I didn't get to do much. He came in. And about a month later, we got into a fight, and he did the same thing. My phone died. He thought, like, I was breaking up with him or something. It was a very, very sick relationship. Just let me put that out there. I wake up at 4 a.m. to my mom saying I need to go pick up the dog. And so I'm charging my phone on the way to the house, and I see these pictures of, like, his wrist just squirting blood everywhere. Like, he's sending me these pictures. I go to my house, and it looks like a murder scene. And so he said he didn't mean to do it. The doctor said 2 centimeters deeper, and they would not have been able to save him.
Wow.
And so he admitted, like, I was doing that for attention. I wanted you to, like, come home right then. And he almost took himself out that way. And after that, I told myself that no matter how bad it got, that would never be my answer. That I would try to deal with it the best way that I knew how. That I would never do that to my daughter or my family, It just really scared me. Because I don't think in that moment in the bathtub that I actually wanted to die. I just think I did not know how to deal with those emotions.
That's what I think. Yeah, a lot of times it is. Like, people want a way out, and they think that that's the answer, but there's so many other ways.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of why we have this podcast, so that they can see there's so much to do with mental health and so many different ways. Yeah. So with your anxiety, how do you deal with that the best?
I would say the best that I deal with that would be my working out.
Okay.
Okay. So, like,
what do you do for that exactly? Because I know you do some classes, right?
Yeah. I do spin. I go to the gym and lift. I do yoga. But sometimes you're not able to do those things. Yeah. Or sometimes you get a job and those things fall by the wayside. So, like, there always has to be a backup or some kind of plan. And for me, like, I cannot give anyone, I wish I could. I cannot give anyone, like, the prescription for what to do. All I can do is, like, tell them what I've been doing, what works and what doesn't, because it's been one big, like, experiment for me. And I think it's going to be different for each person. But it's almost like with the relapse thing, once I figured out that my emotions and my feelings are not, my feelings are not facts, and it's not going to stay that way forever. Yeah. I never gave myself a chance to get through that before. I would always just, at the first sign of like uncomfortableness, I would use. And so it's kind of the same thing, I feel like, with mental health whenever those things arise. And we do all of the things that we know how to do, reach out to friends. Maybe we go to the gym, we get outside, we try to eat something healthy. Vitamins. There's vitamins that can help also. I've been reading into that. But not giving up, like, no matter what. Because that's it. It might not get better for a minute, but it's going to get different at least. And each time that I have not given up, I will say that like something good has happened afterwards. Like when I'm at my wit's end and I'm like, before I got this job, I was thinking to myself, and I have others' perspective too. My mom has, she was wanting me to get on disability. She's like, I don't think that you could ever hold like a real job. I did a lot of illegal things like that. I was not into a lot of legal things whenever I was using. So, but I felt like when she told me that, I felt like if I did that, I would be giving up. Yeah. So right before I got this job, I was kind of in the mind state of like, because I was doing all of the things that I could do for my mental health, and like I had a nice routine going. I have a great support network here, but I was feeling really stagnant, and I was starting to think that maybe I wasn't meant to be sober, or maybe like, I knew that great things happened for other people whenever they stayed sober, but I just really started to feel like pretty much that like all of my chances were out. So like I used to feel like if anything good was going to happen, it might happen to me. Yeah. I kind of had like this streak of luck. And then, throughout life, those things change. And I started to feel like, if this is all that I'm supposed to do, if this is like it for me, I don't know. I was getting really down about it. And it was one of those times where usually I would have given up. The thoughts that were going through my head, I thought about it. But I didn't. And kind of like I said before, every time that I end up not doing something irrational, impulsive, life-changing, and like self-destructive, which is my pattern always. I love to sabotage myself. Every time I get through something without doing that, something comes out of the other end where I'm proven to once again, like over and over again, that things do work out if you give them the chance to. But for me, I think the thing that helped me most with my mental health would have been getting to know myself and starting to accept and try to love who I am, not who I think everyone thinks I should be. Yeah. I've been dealing with that since a kid. I think I wanted to fit in, but I always felt different. So, getting to know your authentic self so that you know what works for you and you know what doesn't.
What do you think it takes to get to know yourself? Because everyone says personal discovery, but it's like, where do you start? How?
Yeah. That's a good question. So I guess for me, it started with, number one, the intention of wanting to get to know myself. Yeah. And then I started journaling. I started to kind of play around with listening to my intuition more. I believe that people who were in like really bad relationships or any kind of trauma like that sometimes they don't trust their own like
decisions.
Yeah, their own. And I understand that whenever it comes to the substance abuse part, but whenever it comes to like instinct, I believe that's different. So, journaling. Also, when I first started getting sober this past time and since my relapse in 2019, if you handed me a feeling sheet and asked me to tell you how I was feeling, I did not know. So I kind of like learned the feelings and like the underlying causes, or you know like
like for anger,
yes,
like
and
for
fear.
Sadness and anger are very tied together because so like primary and secondary emotions.
Because I knew none of that. I couldn't tell you how I felt. I didn't even know like the words to describe both sides: really happy, sad, frustrated, whatever. And then I don't know. It's a lot of work. I would say it's a lot of work because as a woman getting sober in her later 30s, self-esteem is a huge issue. And a lot of times I wanted to kind of quit on my own path and kind of go fit in with some of the other people because it got a little bit lonely there for a minute. But what I learned is, and like I said, I'm still getting to know myself. The people who really matter are going to stick in there with you. And that's really what I found throughout this full, year and a half, 2 years of really trying to get to know myself, is that the ones that didn't really like me, they weeded themselves out. And I still had a pretty awesome group of people that I can call on at any time. And they know I'm a little nuts sometimes, but like...
We can all be.
They let me get it out, and they don't judge me, and they just accept that that's me. And I've actually never had that before. No. Not from family, not from anyone, just to accept, like, that things go on in my head, and if I share it, just to accept me and be like, oh, well, that's just her. How can we help you or whatever,
so you felt safe to be yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's huge.
Yeah.
You need community to do that as well.
Absolutely. And I just took a trip home, and it was a big reminder that that you need the right people around you to be accepted. Because I think a lot of my self-esteem issues might have started from a young age. And some of the things that I was being told then, at 38 years old, whenever I just went to go visit, I was still being told. So, sometimes you have to step away from unhealthy, or at least, put a boundary up with some unhealthy behaviors, especially from, like, your loved ones when you're trying to get yourself better. Because it can, every time that I went home before that, there's only been one time that I've been able to go home and I did not relapse. And they may never understand, and that's okay. I don't feel like I have to tell them everything that I'm doing now, you know?
And I think that acceptance is that's the important part. You don't need their validation and approval anymore. That's the difference.
Me and my daughter are talking about that. Acceptance of just letting them be who they are.
Yeah.
And accepting them for them, because some people may never change and they may never know that they need to. However, being an acceptance of that and being able to put up a boundary has been really awesome for me. I never thought that I was worth putting up a boundary with people. Low self-esteem has just been like, it's been a tough one for me. I was picked on a lot as a kid, so I just don't think that like left me too much. But now, getting to sit with other people, and especially, don't get me wrong, I love my men clients too, but especially getting to hear from women who just they don't get it yet, and I didn't either, but getting to see someone who was in the exact same spot that I was in, and to be able to give them things that, hey, try it out, it might not work for you, but this is what I was able to do. And to watch, some of your clients do those things and grow and like start to open up to you and share with you things that they wouldn't even, I did their intake and no trauma, no nothing, and they start to open up, and it's very awesome to see, because that's whenever I believe that the healing begins.
Yeah, and I've heard some of your sessions, and it's like, wow, you sound like you're a therapist, like, because they are opening up to you, and it's because creating that safe space for them. Yeah. That's huge. So how has helping other people changed you?
Helping other people, so that's something that I've actually wanted to do like my whole life. I thought that I would be really good at it. However, I just thought that I wanted to help people, but getting to actually, like when I get a text from a client and they thank me for doing part of my job or something, I don't know. It's been really eye-opening, because I've sat there with clients before and told them a little bit about myself, and had their jaw drop and be like, I would have never guessed. And, to me, that's just proof that anyone can do it. Yeah. Because if I shared a lot of my story, you would understand why I'm saying that.
That's what I want to hear. I want to hear like a little bit more of like because it seems like, there's a lot of
deeper stuff there.
There's a lot of deeper stuff there that's going on. I don't know if you'd be comfortable sharing some of that.
Like,
or even just pick a story, maybe.
Yeah, or just like, what you'd feel comfortable sharing.
Okay.
Not to put you on the spot.
Yeah, no, you don't have to. It's up to you.
I'm trying to relate it more to mental health and substance abuse. So I'll talk a little bit about my last relapse, and because on my last relapse, I entered territory I had never entered before. Like, growing up, I was a stripper. I kind of grew up watching my mom, like, use men for money. So I grew up, started dancing or whatever. Then I had my daughter. I was actually able to stop everything cold turkey whenever I found out I was pregnant. But about 6 months after having her, I, went back to it.
And where was this, in Texas, or you said Atlanta?
That was in Texas. Okay. And so since my stepdad raised me and my mother, this is why I was kind of in between, is because once they got divorced, he still raised me as his child until I was 14. And then some stuff happened and that relationship changed. But I would go back and forth. And so this was in Georgia, and skip to 2019, I relapse, and I have to move to a different state because I'm wanted in that state now. I've now run away from my legal issues. And
what were you wanted for? If you don't mind.
So it was possession, but then I also, I was getting all of these paid lawyers, and I mean, I've been to jail over 20 times, but it wasn't until like the 17th or 18th time, probably the 17th time, that I heard the words no bond. And lawyers can only get you so far. I just, at that point in time, I thought that I was lucky and that everything worked out for me. I ended up, I've done some time, but so my relapse in 2019, after my niece passed, I had to get out of that state. So I went to Florida. And I went there with my daughter's father, who legally, if they caught me talking to him, I would be sent to prison and had like 6 years hanging over my head. But I was so codependent and so financially dependent and emotionally dependent. And I did not think I could live without him, right? So I go there and he ends up going to prison. And I'm in a new city. I don't know anyone. I have zero money.
What happened with that? Did he go to prison when he was with you?
Yes. So when I had just gotten out from doing like 8.5 months. And I was in drug court like right before all of this happened.
In Florida?
In Georgia.
In Georgia, okay.
Yeah. And then, so my niece passed. I relapsed that day and I went on the run. And the charge that I had gotten locked up for, I actually took it for him. So we made a deal that the next charge, anyways, he took a trafficking charge and he went to prison. So I'm in a new state. I know no one. The town was it was like a dangerous town. There's a lot of shootings. I came from like the island to like, if you heard someone saying they were going on a date, it was not a regular date. Like, there's a lot of prostitution, so I'm there by myself, and I thought I was going to be on the streets. I didn't know anyone. Like, my family didn't talk to me, obviously.
So you were stuck in like a really bad part of Georgia?
Florida. Jacksonville, Florida
Okay.
is a grimy place to be. So that is whenever I got into like sex work. And I did that to like have a place to stay, and I saved up to buy weight. And then that's how I like took care of myself. I used to say that it had no effect on me, because not only did I do something that I never thought I'd do, but I helped others get into it, and then I was also selling fentanyl. At the time, like, I really, had I never been sober before, I would have probably never gotten sober, because I didn't have money issues. I was lonely. I was like depressed and stuff, but the real, like, I was not at my lowest. Anyways, I got into a lot of things that I had never gotten into before, and some really dangerous stuff. And I say when that happened, and I had to basically cut off like who I was on the inside, and become this different person. And it's been a struggle with me ever since, especially in any kind of like relationship status, or, I actually talked about this whenever I was in rehab. I don't know if this is appropriate, but like,
you can say
sex
anything.
in recovery, especially for, well, I think for anyone really. I know I had never had sex sober. huge trigger. So I just thought I was going to be like celibate forever. I was
Forever.
celibate for a
Oh,
long time. But that, sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought.
Why would you say that it was a huge trigger?
Because I had a method. Like, that was my job.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's not supposed to be my job, and I'm just supposed to do it because, like a normal person, like I would have been before. And I still have problems, you know, whenever it comes to that sometimes. But I felt powerful in the moment because it was the first time I had ever taken care of myself. It was the first time that I did not like have to listen to anyone else. Yeah. I could do my own thing. So I felt very powerful at the time. And, however, I believe that it added to my self-esteem issues whenever it all comes down to it. During that time, I basically like paid people to hang out with me. You know, no one wanted to like date someone that was like me. I had to really cut myself off from myself so that I could not feel anything that I was doing. And I feel like once you do that for so long, it becomes a little bit harder and harder to come back each time, or like the further you stray away from yourself. Yeah. I do, like, I share that with people, just because, like, I know that it's a very common thing in substance abuse. And, I'm sorry, that...
What are you thinking?
I was just trying to, I don't think, like, I don't know, maybe I should have came on here and, like, told my story. I just don't feel like I'm doing very well.
No, you are telling your story.
The only thing I want you to do is just elaborate a little bit more. Because it's, like, I know, like, we can edit this part out. But, like, so, like, with, like, AA, it's, like, they, like, kind of, like, condemn war stories, right? They're like, oh, like, you, like, you know, like. But, like, I think with here, you know, it's just a little different. Like, people just find it, like, interesting, right? Because it's, like, you know, and then hopefully, like, the idea is, like, somebody will be able to relate and that you'll be able to help somebody. So, like, don't feel bad if, like, it's not like an AA meeting where it's, like, it has to all be about recovery. Like, you know, like, you can go in depth about certain stories as long as you feel comfortable talking about it.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't want you to just say anything, you know, you don't feel comfortable about. And if you do say something, like, by accident, just say, like, you know, can we edit that out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, or, like, say it so that we can know at that point of it. But, yeah, just, like...
Okay.
Let me hear back. Yeah, let me hear, like, I want to hear, like, the like raw uncut version of your story, because I do feel like you're holding back a little bit because you don't want to be, you know.
Yeah, I should have gotten more clarification before
I know.
we started.
Yeah, sorry.
So, but okay.
Just say when it all started.
Okay, so it all started at when I was 14 years old. The type of person that I was is and I'm not that smart naturally. I was, you know, AB honor roll. I wouldn't hang out with you if you smoked pot. I'd have to wake up at like 3 a.m. to study extra hard. I was super like motivated. My father, who I had, you know, known my whole life. I've only met my real dad, I think 2 or 3 times, and he's an addict and super weird. So, and I always kind of had that in my head too. Like, my mom always talked really bad about my father, but I knew that, like, that's my dad. So I always felt like there was not only something wrong with me, but that I was bad in some way, right?
Yeah, that's tough. Like, if one parent says something bad about the other one, because, like, you know, that's my parent.
Yeah.
Right. Even though I didn't even know him. You know, I met him, I think I've met him 3 or 4 times my whole life. But yeah, that's one thing that I definitely, when my daughter's father and I broke up, is I let her come to her own conclusion, because if not, you know, I still don't know what the truth is to this day. But at 14, my father told me, my stepdad told me that there was going to be a bomb threat at school, and that he was sending me to work with his new wife's mother. My mom is in Texas at this time. Every year, me and my brother and sister would fly down for summer. And this summer, my mom surprised us and was like, y'all are staying. I was super unhappy about it, but I had just like started making friends. And anyways, so my stepfather tells me there's a bomb threat at school. I go to work with my stepmother's mother, who's the assistant district attorney. And nothing like out of the ordinary that day besides that. I get over to my cousin's house afterwards, and my dad comes in and says that they're sending me away, and that they know I've been unhappy. They know that I've been doing drugs and having sex. At this point in my life, I had never touched a drug, and I was still a virgin. And they sent me. I begged to stay because I didn't understand. But I'm like, okay, you guys aren't going to let me stay. They wouldn't let me call my mom. They were like, she's part of this. I was like, fine, you're not going to let me stay. At least let me go pack, you know. And they were like, well, your real father's here. You know, your stuff's in trash bags in the back of his car. So I was sent with this man that I had only met, I think, once or twice before that. The whole ride to his house, which was a few hours away, you know, he's asking me, like, how many people have you slept with? What drugs do you do? You know, and it was very frustrating. I did not understand what was going on. I didn't understand why my mom would sign on to this. I get there, he goes to work and unplugs the phone and takes it with him. This is back when they only had, like, the ones that plug into the wall. He takes it, you know. So I was just, like, stuck there in Alabama. I hadn't even been there before, and no phone. So that lasted for a couple of weeks, and then finally he let me call my mom. She had no idea. I still don't have clarification as to why that happened.
It's very confusing.
That's really weird. And your stepdad did this?
Yes.
To
me.
Wow.
And just sent me
you
off.
never
with your dad, with your
him.
biological dad. That is so strange.
The only thing that I can figure is that right after that, a custody battle started with my brother and sister. That would, like, you know, my mom lost her business. Like, it was a really bad thing. And I had never been legally adopted. That is the only thing that I can conclude in my mind as to why that happened. So my mom leaves from where she was at. She had actually met a guy on the internet and just went and got married. She was on her honeymoon. So she leaves from her honeymoon to come pick me up. And after that day, I'd worked so hard to, like, be this one certain kind of person. And I went and I did a complete 180. I started drinking heavily. As soon as I got my hands on drugs, like, it was over. It was over.
What was the thought process behind that? Just like,
I wanted the pain to go away.
Because it was just such a strange situation that was, like,
And
probably
it hurt.
really hurtful. Yeah.
Because this was the man that raised me, and that I thought was I thought, like, I told you I always felt different, you know, but I really respected that man for raising me. And, you know, still, like I said, we would come down every summer, even after they got divorced. Like, I wasn't his kid. He didn't have to do that. But, yeah, it really hurt. And it was very confusing. So,
Like betrayal.
very much so. And then never which I didn't talk to him for like 7 years after that, because I blamed my addiction on him for a really long time. It took a long time for me to realize that a lot of worse things happen to people, and everyone go through things, and they don't just completely go. I mean, I was balls to the wall. It was from 0 to just, I was a completely different person. I did not care anymore. I thought that I saw where caring got me, and I was not interested. So, you know, I'm using all the time as a teenager. I get into trouble. You know, I caught my first charge at 15.
What was it?
Assault.
Assault.
My first ever fight I got into, I let this girl pick on me for a full year. And then one day I just snapped. So, I was always afraid of fighting before that. I always thought I'd get beat up. But, yeah. And that actually, I mean, that was my first fight. But I've had a lot of anger management issues since then. Anyways, I used very, very heavily. I got pregnant.
What were you using?
So it started with alcohol, and then weed, and then I tried like meth and maybe some other stuff. And then my friend's mom gave me a Xanax and started passing me like the Lord have tens or whatever. I don't remember what it was back in the day, and then came the Oxycontin. And the first time I ever did that, we didn't even know what it was. My friend had just looked it up on the computer. His mom had cancer and had all these bottles filled, but she didn't take them. And so we looked it up. We saw that it would like make you feel a certain way. I crushed it up. We did it. And that's when shit really started, because I was doing it on the weekends at first, and then I was wondering during the week, because my friend would go back to Dallas and stay with his dad. I was wondering like why I wasn't feeling good during the week. I was very naive, didn't know anything about
like I'm withdrawing.
Yeah, I have no idea, but I'm acting a complete, having meltdowns and stuff. So I start stripping. I get into that world. Just basically, it was like a job that I could drink and party at. And, because I was not stopping that anytime soon. I did get pregnant. I had my daughter. Like I said, I was able to stop during that. I don't know how. But 6 months after that, my best friend passed, and I went straight back out again. I started to neglect my daughter, and not just go to the club for work, but like be really neglectful. I would leave her with my aunt.
Like as an escape.
Yeah. I mean, I was not emotionally or mentally equipped at that time, especially once I started putting the drugs back in my body.
How old were you? You said you were 18 or something?
18 when I got pregnant. No, 19 when I got pregnant, 20 when I had her.
Gotcha.
Anyways, so I have her. I relapsed or whatever. I never called that clean because I just white knuckled it. I was very miserable the whole pregnancy, but we end up moving to Georgia to be closer to my mom, and my daughter's father gets out of prison, and we start a relationship. He's very his father was the CEO of Merrill Lynch, so when he turned 18, he got like a $10 million, trust fund. But he's been a heroin addict since he was 16, and so it's under conservatorship. But we were living off the interest of that, and that was giving us around like $450 a year to live off of without touching anything. So we were in nice houses and nice cars and everything, but everything I mean, it looked great on the outside, but it was miserable on the inside. And that's when everything, the court started with my kid and everything. And those years, it broke me. And I was basically alienated from everyone. I don't blame him all the way for that, you know, but he knew what he was doing when he was doing it. And that started this very, 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 very toxic relationship where, like, we had no needs of, like, money. So it was just drugs, and craziness. I mean, playing around with guns. Like, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill me. Mm-hmm. Then I get in trouble. And, you know, I get bailed out, whatever. Every time I don't listen to what he thinks I should do, he calls my probation officer. I don't know this for the longest time, but he's getting me, like, locked up and everything.
What'd you get in trouble for the first time?
So he had followed me and he had put a tracker on my truck, basically. And I stopped by somewhere and he had followed me there. I go to take off. He jumps into my truck. He's trying to take my purse, which has all my drugs in it. Mm-hmm. And so I take, like, the steel boots and I kick him. Someone called the cops and I get, like, snatched out of the car. They charged me with possession of something that he had a prescription for. Mm-hmm. So it could have gotten dropped. However, I get bonded out and I come home and he's basically giving me, like, all of these things that I have to do. And he's like, if you don't do it, I'm coming off your bond. I didn't believe him. I was like, come off my bond. He did. I took a bunch of drugs into the jail with me. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, I was acting psychotic because I was very fucked up. Mm-hmm. And I get caught, you know, obviously. And that just kind of started, like, a road of trouble. And then also, he kind of had me convinced that if he got in trouble again, like, he would go to prison forever and wouldn't be able to take care of me, and I couldn't take care of myself. So, like, how would I live? So I was taking charges for him during that little time. Like, I was, any speeding tickets that I have, I think I've gotten one ticket myself. Every other one, I've jumped in the front seat after we got pulled over. You know what I mean? Anyways, it was just kind of like, it was okay for a while because I didn't have to worry about money. I didn't have to worry about, but I was miserable. I did not have my child. I did not have friends. I didn't have anyone. And then I ended up having to do some time. And when I did that, his father found out he was using, like, the houses, everything. I think he was living on the streets. Yeah. So I did 8.5 months at that time. I got out and I was put in a boot camp for 8.5 months. Well, it was supposed to be a year, but at 8.5 months I got kicked out. I can make it like 8.5 months anywhere, and then I pretty much get tossed. But every time he'd pick me up from rehab, say it was clean, every time I go back, it was just like a very toxic thing. And then once he was gone, so I came to a point in my sobriety, probably at about a year to maybe 13 months at that point, where I cut him off. I go to work one day and he's sitting there and he's like gained weight. He looks good. And I'm like, okay, I tell him I'll call him. 2 days go by, I'm leaving work. I think someone's following me, but I'm not sure. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to pass my house. And if they're still following me, I'm just going to go straight to the police station. Well, it was him. He jumped into my car and was like, basically, he knew how to get me. He was like, let me take you shopping at St. John's Town Center. I've been sober. He had gained all this weight. He actually looked good. Mm-hmm. I found out later that was due to steroids, so he could trick me. Anyways, this is the day that I found out that my niece passed. And we were at some dope and needle fell out of his pockets. So I think I had 14 months at that point. And before that, I had 17 months. I only used twice. I died both times. The second time, they thought I might be a vegetable. So I cleaned myself up for 14 and a half months until that day. Things were really bad. It went, he would smoke crack and think that I was doing all of this stuff. And I wasn't even allowed to go to the store without him. So it was very, 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 very crazy. Mm-hmm. And dangerous, but at least I was like, I knew I had a place to stay. I knew that like I had food. I knew I had someone who, even if he was like my abuser too, I knew that he was like there for me in a way. When he went to prison, that's when that was my first time ever taking care of myself and fending for myself. Through like this really odd thing happening, I got in with some people that I probably never would have been able to get in with. And it kind of kept me safe down there. And I started buying weight, and I had a few people that worked under me doing that. And then I was also doing the things with the women. Mm-hmm. I thought life was like actually okay because I was proud of myself that I could take care of myself. I got out of a hotel and into my own place. But I was also cut off from my family. And I was also losing my mind.
I mean, it sounds kind of like you were like almost like a drug dealing pimp at it, right? If I'm like understanding this.
I wouldn't put it that way, but it's kind of what it turned more. I never got anyone into it that wasn't already doing it. Mm-hmm. It just kind of started like I had my thing up and a girl reached out to me and asked me a few questions. And so it kind of started like that. Anything that I could make money from back then, I was making money from. And I was just like any other asshole drug dealer that if I knew you really needed it, I would make you like, that's how I made people do stuff for me. Mm-hmm. That's how I had my friends, is because I had what they wanted and they had, I guess, what I wanted but didn't know at the time, which was some kind of connection with people. I would have a connection for how many ever minutes, and then, they were gone and I was by myself again. When I say that my mind was going, I believe that there's a certain point that you can go, that your mind can go, and if you take it too far, like, that's it. You don't come back to that same person. And I believe I was really, really close to that. Like, this is an embarrassing story. So, I went into psychosis a couple of times because in my mind, if I did some meth with my fentanyl, I could stay up for days and I could sell more so I could like make more money. I also am addicted to money. That's one thing that I've learned too. But when I say my mind was going, it was going. I painted my face like a clown. My boyfriend came home. I had absolutely destroyed the house. I rubbed feces on his wall. That is something I've never told anyone before because I'm just letting you guys know how out there I got. And then I got into a truck with all 4 doors open. I hit my roommate with his own truck and then took off with like all the doors open. Luckily, I mean, they had to call the cops because I was like, something was going to happen, and I would get 5150'd, but then my boyfriend, who's much older, and who had never done a drug in his life. He'd been into like some white collar crime or something like that, so he had done some kind of time, but like this was a new world for him. And he would get me out of these situations. Like, or either let them, I got him into like doing things for me that he could have gotten in big trouble for. But these 5150 situations, I never stayed the 72 hours. I was able to get out before then, like, and I had to work it a certain way, but like that shit just started getting really, really scary. The story that I just told about like doing all of that to his place, and like having standoffs in parking lots with like trucks, you know, like I'm surprised I didn't kill someone.
What do you mean standoffs?
Like they were trying to get me not to drive, and I'm in the middle of this like parking lot, and so my roommate and the guy that I was with are like trying to, and I'm like, I will run into your truck or I will run you over, like get out of the way, you know what I mean? I wasn't the same person. And I don't know, it wasn't good. But I'll say that had I never had any kind of sobriety and had my family not cut me off, you know, I might not have ever tried to get it any better. And I think going into that lifestyle of like, I was always into a little bit of crime, but like actually like doing it myself, it's a hard lifestyle to get out of, especially getting sober. I know I've talked to other women who feel this way too. They feel like, you know, they had more money when they were using than when you get sober, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of a hard pill to swallow for a little bit. But yeah, and then so I made a plan to get insurance and go to treatment. It took me, I would have to ask the exact number, but it's either like 36 to 47 missed flights.
Wow.
Yeah. Like, they finally, my stack of itineraries was like this. And the place finally told me, they were like, we're not going to order it until you get to the airport. So I would get to the airport, they'd order the ticket, I'd go into the bathroom, do a shot, fall out for a few hours, miss my plane ticket again. I could not leave on the plane unless I was fully stocked. I had to fly out, like, I was that person that brought drugs in with me because I just was not, I couldn't make it 2 days. You know, and that's why since 2019, I've been to about 20 treatment centers. A lot of that was in the beginning, like, and I would get out and I would think that, like, things would be kind of like how they were whenever I was younger and sober. However, I was a lot more innocent back then. Then I put myself in this new world, and I'll say that that was kind of one of the last things and the hardest things for me to let go of was the lifestyle and the money that comes, you know, and maybe like I guess maybe I felt like respected. I felt I felt in charge of my life for the first time. So breaking out of that was really hard. Like, I remember once I was finally able to make it through detox, which took forever, I thought to myself, okay, now I'm good. I could just sell drugs and not do them. And then, like, I would make, and, you know, I've basically had to experiment myself. Like, you tell me that the stove is hot, I'm going to touch it, and then I have to touch it again just to make sure that it really did burn me. I'm that kind of person. And I wish I wasn't. And I genuinely hope for my clients that, some of the things that I tell them that they don't have to go through, that hopefully they don't have to go through it. because if I would have listened to those ladies who were talking to me, I guess 14 years ago, you know, I think like that, and I get into that, I could have been sober at 24. I would have, you know, this time here. Where would I be now? However, I think I had to go through a lot of the things that I went through to be able to do what I do now and have an impact. I did not really go like super deep into all of the chaos, but when I look people in their eyes and I tell them that, like, if I can do this, that anyone can, like, I mean that from the bottom of my heart, because I was shooting up fentanyl. I genuinely did not think in my heart that I could do enough to kill me. Like, when I finally got help and was able to make it through the detox, it was after they tested my levels. I had been begging someone, like, test my levels. Y'all will see what I am talking about, please. Because I couldn't make it, like, 2 days I was gone. And I finally got somebody to do that, and they doubled all my meds. Like, I was in a wheelchair. It was really, really bad. Fentanyl is the love of my life, but also, or I guess opiates, not strictly fentanyl, but opiates were definitely the love of my life. And, you know, they also took everything that was precious to me, and some of those things I will never get back. But today, I try to forgive myself. I know others forgive me. I try to make it up to the people who I cannot make it up to by just trying to do the next right thing. I don't always know what that is. But I have a pretty good group of people around me and people who I work with that, you know, luckily I'm very fortunate to have that around me. People who are very educated in this, and, you know, I would love to say that I got sober and, like, all of my problems disappeared. But the truth is like, it's a daily, I wouldn't say a daily struggle, but it's a roller coaster for sure, you know? And what I've learned is if I just don't give up on the ride and I keep going, then, you know, I believe if I've come this far in 18 months, I'm really excited to see, because I never would have guessed when people asked me what I wanted my future to look like back whenever I started to get sober. Yeah, I said I wanted to help people, and I kind of had, like, these big dreams, but I don't even think that, like, I said I wanted to work at a treatment center or anything like that, because I just never thought that anyone would see me as someone who would be capable of that, or, like, you know, I don't know.
Those are the people who are best at the job.
Yeah.
Because, like, you have the experience. You don't have to fake anything. It's, like, very authentic.
Yeah.
You know?
That's one thing I can appreciate about when I first started doing groups. I thought that I needed to kind of pretend like I had my shit together. But it was hard for me. So, and that's why I do share what I share with, like, my people. If it's a topic and I'm like, this is something that I am, like, like, I picked the topic of self-esteem or something, you know? This is something that I'm working on. Like, let's all work on this together. Other things, yes, I've, like, with CBT and everything, I believe that I have changed some of those neural pathways. Yeah. And I know that you can do that with, like, affirmations and things. So I actually just learned that. I didn't know that was, like, the same. Yeah, I didn't know it was, like, the same type of thing. So but I know
we're almost at it. We're kind of running low on time, right? You guys said. Yeah, the memory.
Oh shoot.
What are we at?
An hour.
An hour. Okay. I liked where you're going with that neuropathway stuff.
Yeah,
though.
no, that's true.
I don't know how you want to wrap it up. Something with like mental health.
Maybe some like hope you can give to our viewers,
or like how you kind of treat your clients. I think, or like some of like the dialogue or like things that happen with your clients and like what helps them and helps you. That it's just overall. I know it was.
You said helping clients. You said
like
same
hope.
thing. Like yeah.
Okay, so I would say if I had to give advice on what I believe has helped me to get as far as I am right now, it would be to, number one, never give up. No matter what happens, no matter how many times you get knocked down, get back up. Like, it's not a source of weakness. It's a source of strength, honestly. Being vulnerable. Being vulnerable is a big one for me. I believe that once I was able to put down like the street side of myself that I needed to be, and I could get vulnerable with how I was truly feeling, and doing that and then watching other people become more comfortable getting vulnerable and sharing kind of the same experience, getting to see that is like one of the most amazing things. And then also working with a client, seeing them come in, especially if I do their intake, because I get all of those intake questions, and then getting to work with them, and just watching the walls break down. Watching them have a bad day, freak out, like want to give up and not give up and keep going. And then a few days later, like you see a smile on their face or like something great happen, it's just, it's proof to me that, they say don't give up before the miracle happens or whatever. And every time I think that's what I did. And so just have compassion on yourself. Not every day is going to be a great day. But yeah, life is life. And just being okay sometimes, and like not thriving in chaos or needing anything, just being okay, like with peace, and knowing that you're worth it, because everyone is worth this. Everyone's not going to get the chance, but yeah, I believe everyone deserves to be able to figure out and learn about it and have a chance to get sober. But yeah, definitely have compassion.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much.